it's Ruby. Thanks for clicking on my video. Today's video is kind of like, it's an organized video, but it's a thought process that I've had as a mom and as somebody that has planned multiple trips now to Disney World and Universal Studios over the holiday time. And it's gonna be focused on how can I take my stroller where I need to go, and what do I need to think about when I'm considering bringing a stroller or taking a baby carrier. So if that sounds interesting, please keep watching. All right, so let me break it down for you, considering what I take to the park with me. I have videos on packing tips, and I'm not gonna digress too much from that. But one thing that is critical for me as a mom with a small child and a child on the verge of toddler slash child, my oldest is about to be 5 this year, a double stroller is critical. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you the pros of bringing your stroller and the cons, and I'm also gonna compare and contrast between Universal Studios and Disney World. So Universal Studios, if you get there early enough, you can park on the same level as the entrance into the City Walk area. So what I mean by that is they have a VIP parking area that lets you off on the same level, but you can also just go into the parking garage, and I believe it's like King Kong area. They have the same level parking. Why that matters is because of two things. Number one is you might have to take an elevator up or down, and if you're going at a busy time, that would take a little bit of time. They have escalators, but again, I'm kind of focusing on what you can do without having to close or fold your stroller up. So Universal Studios, you can park on the same level as getting into City Walk. City Walk is the restaurant, and I believe they have like sometimes movies or sometimes bowling in that area, but it's that area that's right before Universal Studios, and you can walk through it to get to either park, Universal Studios or Islands of Adventure. So for us, we got to the park really early, we had our double stroller, we could park on the same level, and we could walk all the way up to the gate of Universal Studios because we went there first. And that was awesome. I have anxiety about closing my stroller because I have a City Select, and so my stroller actually doesn't just close, it has pieces to it, so each seat can be taken off, and it's cool when you're like adjusting them, or if you're maybe adding the 2 seats versus a 1 seat, but it really sucks when you have to fold it up, and it's very heavy. So I was not wanting to have to take my stroller apart, and I was very pleasantly surprised going into Universal Studios because if you get there early enough, or if you pay for VIP, you can walk right into the main area, the City Walk, and right up to the gate. You don't have to take a bus, you don't have to do anything like that, and you don't have to take your stroller apart. So from that perspective, I totally recommend taking an actual stroller to the park. Now, I will tell you that if you are parking at Universal Studios, they have those fast walk, I don't know what they're called. They're kind of like escalators that are flat, and you cannot take a stroller on that. So it kind of is unfortunate because if you're walking without a stroller, so let's say you choose to keep your baby in the baby carrier and not take a stroller, you can go straight across on these little walkways, and they kind of accelerate your walking to get you down to the entrance of City Walk. It is a distance, okay? Now, while you can walk the entire distance or do this walk, this fast sidewalk thing, it is a bit of a walk. It's not like you're right there. So keep that in mind. For me, my back starts to hurt, and so I would 100% not recommend taking a baby carrier into the park without a stroller, but I've seen some moms that like will put their newborns in there, or like smaller babies, and the baby feel more secure and they feel good too. So in that case, I guess if the baby's smaller, that might make sense, but for me, I 100% would stick to the stroller when it comes to that initial walk from your car to the gates. Another really cool thing about Universal Studios is that you can get to the parks, either park, so there's Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure. We did not go to the Volcano Bay, and I believe Volcano Bay you would have to take some type of additional transportation. I didn't see any obvious way to get between the two, but at least for Islands of Adventure and Universal Studios, once you get to the gate, you can walk in with your stroller, and if you want to go to either parks, there's 2 ways to do it. The first way is to take the Hogwarts Express, and that was awesome. You have to have a park hopper ticket to be able to do that. I don't think they call it park hopper though in Universal Studios. They call it something else. But you have to be able to hop between the parks in order to take that train. But I liked that because one, I got to take the elevator down, so that saved a little bit of time on the walking and going and looping around, and also it did make the line a little bit shorter. Not at the King Station stop, but at the Hogsmeade stop. I got to go a little bit ahead of everybody and take the elevator down. And also, when you go there, you just take your kids out of the stroller and they'll take care of the stroller. So what that means is you just get to go on with your kids, either hold them or walk with them. You get to go into your room or your cabin within that train area, and you have the whole experience. It's so amazing. Even if you just go back and forth, I totally recommend doing it. It was really fun to do that. And side note, I think I liked it better coming from King Station back to Hogsmeade. It is a different display, a different experience depending on if you're going to Islands of Adventure or if you're coming back. So that is something to think about. But they just keep the stroller, you know, put it to the side. You don't have to take it into the small area with you. And then when you get off of the train, they've already pulled your stroller out. You put your kids right back in and go on your way. So that's really awesome. You didn't have to move or close your stroller, and I really, really appreciated that. Another thing I mentioned in my last video is that although I loved the stroller situation as far as not having to close it up for any real reason, I did not like the fact that there wasn't a lot of stroller parking. And if there is stroller parking, it wasn't really obvious to me where the stroller parking was. If I was to be king for the day, I would add additional stroller parking in, and I would make sure the signage is bright enough and high enough. And also there was times when I'd ask a cast member at Universal Studios where the stroller parking was, and not all the time did they know exactly where it was. So again, it's not a huge, like, you know, thing, but for me, if, like, let's say I'm trying to get on a ride, and mind you, they don't have fast passes at Universal Studios. You can pay extra money when you buy your ticket to get front of the line access to some of their rides, but you know, you have to pay extra money to do that. It's not like you can book it for free. And if there's a really short wait somewhere and I really want to get into the queue with my kid, I need to be able to park my stroller. And another thing that was different between Universal Studios and Disney World is Disney World has a ton of stroller parking, but if you like get confused about putting your stroller, they'll actually move your stroller into the stroller parking. And that can be really confusing for some people, but for people like me, I do kind of like that. I'd rather, you know, be in the right spot the first time, but if I get it wrong, I don't want to block people and like cause problems. So at Disney World, they will move your stroller into the stroller parking area. Whereas at Universal, I did see strollers kind of like abandoned here and there by like the entrance to rides because they weren't really sure. I didn't see anybody moving the strollers, but again, I wasn't always sure where the stroller parking was anyways. Unless I saw like an area, then I would just park my stroller and then walk up to whatever ride I was trying to get to. It wasn't like specific to that ride, if that makes sense, for stroller parking. I mentioned how to get to the parks with the trains. The other way, and we did do this at one point because the wait to take the train between Islands of Adventure and Universal was like 70 minutes. We did come out of Universal Studios and walk around to Islands of Adventure. It was a bit of a walk, and towards the end of the day it does wear your feet out, but it's a nice walk because you do enter back into City Walk, and looking at the outside of the park and seeing that big ball, the Universal ball, it's really beautiful, especially at night. And I mentioned we were there over the holidays, so they had holiday decorations all through the City Walk area as well as inside the parks. So it is a really nice walk, but the point of what I'm saying is that you could, if you wanted to, you could go to Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure and never have to collapse your stroller. And that is such a blessing in its own right because, man, it could be a lot. So consider that when you're looking at if you're gonna bring a stroller or a baby carrier to Universal Studios. Now I will say that if you're like in excellent shape and you like to hold your baby close to you and you wanna be able to use maybe the escalators, or the walkways, the fast sidewalks, and you want to just be able to go with your baby, then take a baby carrier if that's your way. I would really be curious about women that have spent a whole day in the park with the baby carrier, what they thought about that. I myself didn't try to do that. When I go to the airport, I actually check my stroller and I use the baby carrier going through the airport, but I did notice by the end when I get to my actual airplane, a lot of times I'm already worn out. So I don't know. teach their own, but let me know if you think that the baby carrier is better than the stroller. Let's talk a little bit about Disney World and the stroller situation. I will say that to me it's improved with the gondola system. If you don't know, the main transportations between the parks at Disney World are the gondola system, which only is operational between certain parks. So we took it specifically between Epcot and Hollywood Studios, and it was amazing. I loved it. We were able to push the stroller right onto the gondola and just sit down. The kids didn't have to get taken out, and they could see because the back part of the gondola is clear, so you could see out, and I didn't have to take them out. I didn't have to unload the stroller, so that was really awesome. And another way to get between the parks is to take the tram. So you can take the tram from Magic Kingdom at the gate into Magic Kingdom, and you don't have to collapse your stroller. If you take the monorail and you have a stroller, you don't have to collapse it. You can push your stroller right on there. So if you're going from the hotels within that monorail loop, or if you're going from the entrance of Magic Kingdom to Magic Kingdom, you can keep your stroller like that. It's not a problem. They just, when they tell you to go to a specific cabin on the monorail, they'll just send you to one that has a little bit less people, so there's space for your stroller. So that's awesome. Again, you don't have to collapse it. Another way to get to and from is the boat. Okay, so for the large boats, if you're going to catch the large boat from the Magic Kingdom entrance to Magic Kingdom, you do not have to collapse your stroller again. You can just push it right on, and that's awesome. However, if you do the smaller boat system that takes you from Magic Kingdom to some of the area hotels, I believe it's the same at Epcot as well, you do have to collapse your stroller. You cannot leave it open. Now, I have seen, if it wasn't super busy, a cast member allowing people to keep their strollers open, but that's not a guarantee. And I was actually looking on the moms panel. Oh, so I've said that before. Go check out the moms panel for Disney World. Pretty much every question you've ever wanted answered is on there. But I was checking it out, and what it says is you will be required to fold your stroller to use the trams in the theme park's parking lot system. So that's another thing. If you park at one of the parking lots, unless you get there super early, so like we got to we got to Disney's Hollywood Studios before 5 a.m. on New Year's Day, we were able to park close enough to just walk up to the gates. But another time when we had, last time gone on Christmas, we went in the middle of the day, switched parks, and we drove between. We had to walk because the trams, you could close it and put it on the trams, but it was like really crazy. And so we ended up walking, and it was a long walk because we just didn't want to collapse our stroller. But I will tell you, if you go on the holidays and you park kind of far out or you have to take the trams, it's really crazy. Even though they tell people to chill out and to wait before you stand up at that line and you get on the tram, if you're trying to hold a double stroller, people will cut in front of you. I've seen it. It doesn't bring out the best in people, let me just put it that way. And so trying to get that double stroller once you've collapsed it, and if you have multiple pieces like me, on the tram system in the parking lot, it's horrible. It is horrible, especially if you're going at a busy time of year. So I would consider either doing the stroller thing and just getting there early enough so you can walk in, or get a better stroller that doesn't have multiple pieces and just be full of hope that people are going to actually let you get your spot or be considerate to you and your family as you're trying to take your double stroller. But back to what I was saying about the moms panel. So the motorboat launches that operate between Magic Kingdom Park and Magic Kingdom area, you will be required to fold your stroller. So, I mean, like I said, if you have a stroller that isn't super packed up with stuff and it's not that big of a deal to collapse it, then, to each your own. This video doesn't really apply. It's just more educational, so you know what you have to expect if you're going to bring a stroller and you don't want to close it up. Boats, the big boat, you can go ahead and keep it open. Otherwise, you have to close it. The trams, you have to close it. The monorail, you do not have to close it. And then the buses. Oh, the gondolas, you don't have to close it. The buses. Whew. So we took the buses from Animal Kingdom to, I think at the time it was last year Magic Kingdom, so before the gondola system was in place, and that was not a good experience. Not only is like the wait kind of long if you take the bus, but you have to collapse it and put it underneath the bus. So if you're like me and you have like a backpack and maybe you bought stuff in the park and you kind of throw it in the stroller, you got to make sure all that stuff is packed up. You can't have anything loose because you could lose it when it gets put to the bottom of the bus. You could lose stuff. So that's another thing you want to think about if you're going to go to a park where you have to rely on the bus system. Let's say you miss the gondola or something like that. it's not a fun experience. But this last time, Epcot to Hollywood Studios, and we were able to take the gondola, it was so great. Like, oh my gosh, what an amazing system. I'm so glad they did it, and I hope they expand it. And I'll have to look into that if they're planning on expanding. All right, guys, so I kind of just briefly went over what you should expect if you're taking a stroller into either park. I didn't really say much about the baby carrier stuff for Disney World because it's pretty much the same criteria. If you have a baby that you want to carry in your baby carrier, you're in great shape, your back's not gonna hurt, and you don't mind walking all day with that extra weight on you, go ahead and take the baby carrier if that makes sense to you. For me, you know that I'm an avid person that believes that you should plan a afternoon or a early dinner break so that your kids can sleep, and I prefer to let my kids sleep in the stroller, or as I showed you in my Epcot video for New Year's Day, well, New Year's Eve going into New Year's Day, my kids were knocked out in the stroller and we were just pushing them through crowds, but it was cool because we could stay out a little bit later because they were comfortable in the stroller. So those are things to consider. If there's something else you want to know about maybe packing or what you should take or what to expect at either park, just let me know. I feel like I can compare the two pretty well. And you know, this one has been really specific to Orlando, but I could do the same for the Hollywood experience because I've also done Disneyland and Universal Studios Hollywood. The one thing I do want to point out that people should remember is Orlando is a very concentrated thing where everything's in one spot. You've got SeaWorld, you've got Universal Studios, you've got all these different, I think Busch Gardens is out there, you have Disney World, all that stuff is like in Orlando, whereas in California, a lot of those major parks are spread out. Disneyland is in Anaheim. Universal Studios, though that's in LA or the Hollywood Hills area. SeaWorld is not even close, it's in San Diego, it's pretty far away, and then you'll have like Knott's Berry Farm or Six Flags, that's like a little bit more east, like closer to like the Palmdale area or east of Burbank. So things are way more spread out in California. They have a lot of the same fun stuff, maybe not the magnitude, but it's really spread out, and you want to think about that as well if you're planning a trip. Okay guys, well thank you so much for watching my video. Please remember to subscribe to my Instagram, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!